I was 16 when this happened, and I'm 24 now. I've spent a lot of years trying to organize what that night felt like into something I can explain clearly, and I think I've finally gotten close enough. I still can't watch horror movies. Not because I think monsters are real, because I know people are. The family's name was Harmon. Not their real name, but they've heard this story told, and they know I tell it, so that's what we'll use. I'd babysat their daughter, Lily, twice before. She was 6. Quiet, imaginative, the kind of kid who plays by herself without needing much from you. The first 2 times I watched her, it was practically the easiest money I'd ever made. She'd draw things at the kitchen table for an hour, eat whatever I made her, and fall asleep reading picture books. Her parents were always home before 10. I had never once felt uneasy in their house. The house was a ranch-style place in a suburb about 15 minutes from where I lived. Single floor, no second story. It had a long hallway that ran from the front of the house to the back bedrooms, with the kitchen and living room opening up in the middle. There was a laundry room off the kitchen, and next to it a door that led to the basement. On my first visit, Mrs. Harmon had pointed it out and said the basement was just storage, and she didn't want Lily going down there because the stairs were steep and there was no real railing to hold on to. She'd show me the lock on the door, just a simple turn latch that you twisted horizontal to lock and vertical to unlock. She twisted it horizontal and said, "Leave it like that." I had. On the night everything happened, it was October, a Thursday. Mr. and Mrs. Harmon were going to a work dinner for his company and wouldn't be back until around 11. I got there at 6. Lily was already in pajamas, eating crackers at the kitchen table, watching a cartoon on a tablet propped against the fruit bowl. She barely looked up when I came in. Mrs. Harmon ran through everything fast because they were already a little late. What Lily could eat if she was hungry, where the thermometer was, don't let her have the tablet past 7:30, bedtime at 8. She hugged Lily twice and told her to be good. Then she pointed at the basement door as she was putting on her coat, like it was an afterthought, and said, "That's locked. Don't let her go near it." When they left, I sat with Lily while she finished her crackers. We watched the cartoon together, and she pointed out the characters to me in this very serious way, explaining who each one was, as if I might not understand otherwise. I gave her a bowl of grapes around 6:45 because she asked if she could have a snack that was round. We built a small fort out of couch cushions at 7:15. By 7:45, I was already thinking the night would go the same as the other 2. I put Lily to bed at 8. Her room was at the end of the hallway, farthest from the kitchen. She had a white noise machine on her windowsill that played ocean sounds and a lamp that projected moving stars onto her ceiling. She asked me to leave the door open slightly. I did. I went back to the living room and picked up my phone. I texted a friend, watched some videos, ate a banana I found in the fruit bowl. Around 8:40, I got up to use the bathroom off the kitchen. When I came out and started back toward the living room, I glanced at the basement door out of habit. The turn latch was vertical, unlocked. I stopped. I stood there looking at it for a few seconds, running through the possibilities. I had not touched that door. Lily had been with me the entire evening until 8 o'clock in my eyeline. There was no way she had gotten out of bed, come to the kitchen, flipped the latch, and gotten back to her room without me hearing it. And I had been in the bathroom for maybe 90 seconds. Not long enough for any of that. I told myself it was possible I'd misremembered how the latch looked, that maybe it had been vertical when I arrived, and I hadn't noticed. I walked over and turned it horizontal. I stood there with my hand on it for a second after I turned it. Then I walked back to the living room. 20 minutes later, I needed a glass of water. I went to the kitchen, filled the glass, and on my way back I looked at the basement door again. The latch was vertical. This time my body went cold in a way that I actually felt, not metaphorically, literally, like the temperature in my chest dropped. I stood there holding my glass and stared at the door for what felt like a very long time. Then I looked at the laundry room door beside it, which was also closed. I started noticing the sounds in the house. The refrigerator hum, the ocean noise coming faintly from Lily's room at the end of the hall, the complete absence of any other sound. I went back to the living room. I sat on the edge of the couch. I put my phone in my hand, but I didn't look at the screen. I was listening. I'm not sure what I thought I was going to hear. What I heard about 4 minutes later was a soft sound from the direction of the kitchen, not loud enough to identify with certainty. Not a creak, not a knock. More like a weight shifting, a pressure somewhere in the structure of the house changing. I got up and walked to Lily's room first. I pushed the door open without going in. She was asleep. The stars were still moving slowly across her ceiling. Her breathing was the slow, deep rhythm of genuinely sleeping. I walked back down the hallway toward the kitchen. I did it slowly because every part of my body was telling me not to. The kitchen light was on, the same as I'd left it. The fruit bowl, the tablet face down where I'd left it, and the basement door. The latch was vertical again. I turned around. I picked up Lily, blanket and all. She woke up halfway and said my name, confused. I carried her to the front of the house, to the living room, and I sat down on the couch with her against me, and I locked the front door deadbolt from the inside. I texted Mrs. Harmon and said there was something wrong with the basement door, and I needed her to call me. I didn't say why in the text because I didn't want to alarm her so much that she drove dangerously fast. She called in about 3 minutes. I spoke quietly so Lily wouldn't hear and told her about the latch. I told her it had changed position 3 times. I told her I'd heard a sound and I was scared and I needed her to come home or call someone. There was a silence that lasted just long enough to feel significant. Then she said, "Call the police. Right now. Don't go near that door." I called 911. While I was on with the operator, Lily had fallen back asleep against my shoulder with absolutely no idea what was happening. I kept my voice as low and level as I could. I gave the address. I said I was babysitting and there might be someone in the basement. The operator asked if the basement had exterior access. I said I didn't know. She asked if I was somewhere I could lock a door. I said I was in the living room with the front door deadbolted. The operator stayed on the line with me. I could hear her typing. She told me officers were on the way. She told me not to engage with anyone, not to open the basement door, not to move unless I had a specific reason to. I sat there in the dark with a sleeping 6-year-old and a phone pressed to my ear, and I did not take my eyes off the hallway toward the kitchen. The police were there in under 8 minutes. I heard their cars before I saw the lights. 2 officers came to the front door, and I let them in and pointed toward the kitchen without saying much. They cleared the kitchen first. Then one of them tried the basement door, and it was locked horizontal latch, the way I'd kept turning it. She looked at me and I shook my head, meaning I hadn't touched it since the last time. They went into the basement. The other officer stood with me in the living room. Lily slept through the whole thing somehow. I could hear the officers moving below us, the sound of feet on concrete, the scrape of something being moved. After about 4 minutes, they came back up. One of them said, "There's a window down there. Small, near the ceiling, utility side. The latch is broken. Looks like it's been forced from outside at some point. Old damage, not recent. Nothing down there now." He said, "Nothing down there now," and I heard the word "now" specifically, and I'm still hearing it. Mr. and Mrs. Harmon arrived while the police were still there. Mrs. Harmon came straight to me and held my shoulders and asked if I was okay. I wasn't, not really, but I said yes because Lily was starting to wake up and I didn't want her to see me not okay. Mr. Harmon talked to the officers. He'd had no idea about the broken window. They'd bought the house 2 years ago. He hadn't been down there in months. The police never found anyone. They canvassed the exterior, checked the yard, came back and said there was no one visible in the area. Whatever the sound was, whatever was turning that latch, whoever had been down there or not been down there, it stayed unresolved. The official position was that the latch might be worn and could shift on its own. I turned it horizontal 3 times in one evening. I know what I saw. I babysat Lily one more time after that in the daytime for 2 hours while her mom was at a dentist appointment. I left immediately when Mrs. Harmon got home, and I made up an excuse about needing to study. I've been in that house after dark a total of 0 times since. I don't have a clean resolution for this. No one was arrested. No one was definitively identified. The basement window was fixed. The latch was replaced with a deadbolt. And somewhere in my memory there's a turn latch flipping from horizontal to vertical in an empty kitchen, and I have never fully explained it to my own satisfaction. I'm 27 now. I babysit a couple of my friends' kids sometimes, and I tell myself it's fine, that what I'm about to describe was a specific situation and not something that could happen every time. I almost believe it, almost. This was the summer I was 19, a few weeks after I'd finished my first year of college. I was home for the summer and needed money. A neighbor 2 streets over, a woman named Terry, whose daughter Emma was 7, asked my mom if I was available a few nights a week. My mom said yes on my behalf, which I wasn't completely thrilled about, but the money was good and Terry seemed genuinely nice. Terry's house was a 2-story place on a corner lot, which meant it had a side yard that ran along the street perpendicular to the front door. There were windows on the side of the house, a kitchen window and, above it, a window from the upstairs hallway that looked directly out onto this side yard and the street. Terry had a motion sensor light on the garage that lit up the driveway and part of the front, but the side yard was in a kind of shadow depending on where the street lights hit. I noticed all of this because on my first night there, Terry pointed it out herself. She said the motion light was new, and the previous owners had apparently had an issue with people cutting through the yard, so she'd put it in. She showed me where the light switch was for the side yard porch fixture. which she said she sometimes left on. That night she left it off. Emma was the kind of kid who had very specific preferences about everything and communicated them without any self-consciousness. She wanted to play with her dolls, but only if I agreed to voice specific characters. She wanted her grilled cheese cut diagonally, not horizontally, and she could tell the difference. She wanted 3 songs before bed, not 2 and not 4. I liked her. She had opinions, and she knew how to express them. I'd been watching Emma for about 3 weeks, 6 or 7 sessions, before the night I'm talking about. By then I was comfortable in the house, comfortable with the routine. I knew where everything was. I knew that the dishwasher made a sound like something knocking when it was in its drain cycle, and I knew that the neighbor's cat sometimes got onto the back deck, and that the sound of it moving across the wooden planks could be startling if you weren't expecting it. On a Saturday night in late July, Terry left around 7. Emma and I did the doll thing, the diagonal grilled cheese, a bath, and the 3 songs. She was asleep by 8:30. I came downstairs and poured myself a glass of iced tea from the pitcher in the fridge and sat down on the couch. I had a book I was trying to get through, a thriller, which feels ironic now. At around 9:15, the motion sensor light on the garage came on. I looked up. The living room window faced the front yard, so I could see the driveway flooded with light. Nothing visible was moving. I watched for about 20 seconds, and then the light went off. I went back to my book. Motion lights go off all the time. Moths, a cat, the neighbor's car going by close enough to trigger it. I didn't think anything of it. At 9:40, it came on again. This time I got up and looked out the window more deliberately. The driveway was empty. The front path was empty. The light stayed on for about 15 seconds, then went off. I stood at the window for another 30 seconds after it went off, just looking. Nothing. I went to the kitchen for a refill on my iced tea. The kitchen window faced the side yard. While I was at the counter, I looked out of it. The side yard was dark. The street light on that corner was one of the older orange sodium ones that cast a slightly yellowy light and didn't reach very far into the yard. I could see the edge of the fence, the beginning of the grass, and then darkness. I almost didn't see it. There was a person standing in the side yard. They were standing still, close enough to the fence that they were partly obscured by it, far enough into the dark that their outline was the only thing visible. But it was a person, the shape of a head, a shoulder, a torso, standing completely still, facing the house. I stepped back from the window. My heart was doing something in my chest that I'd never felt before. Not fast exactly, but loud, like each beat was more forceful than normal. I pressed myself against the kitchen wall, out of line of sight from the window, and stood there. I waited. I don't know what I was waiting for. Maybe for them to move and prove they were just a person cutting through, just someone stopping to check their phone, just something explainable. I counted to 30 in my head and then looked out the window again, from the side, staying close to the frame. They were still there, same position, same complete stillness. I went upstairs. I went to Emma's room first. She was asleep. I locked her door from the outside using the key Terry kept on the hook in the hallway. It was a keyed handle, not a deadbolt, but it locked. I pocketed the key. I went to the hallway window that faced the side yard, the one above the kitchen. I stood to the side and looked down. The person was still there, and now that I was higher up, I could see them a little better. They were an adult, not a child, not a teenager. They were standing with their arms at their sides and their face pointing toward the ground floor of the house. I called Terry. She answered on the second ring, and I told her in a low voice that there was a person standing in her side yard and had been for at least several minutes and wasn't moving. I told her I'd already locked Emma's door. She didn't hesitate. She said, "Call 911. I'm leaving now." I called 911. The operator was calm and asked me to describe the person and their location. I did my best adult, standing near the side fence, facing the house. She asked if they had appeared to try to enter the house. I said not that I'd seen. She asked if all the doors were locked. I went through them in my head. Front door, deadbolt, yes. Chain, yes. Back door, I'd checked it 2 hours ago. Side door into the garage, I didn't know. I told the operator there might be an unsecured door into the garage from the side of the house, and she said officers were already on the way and told me to stay upstairs away from windows. I sat on the floor in the hallway between Emma's locked door and the top of the stairs, and I stayed there. I could hear the house. Every sound had a meaning I was trying to decode in real time. The dishwasher wasn't running. The back deck was quiet. The house was just making its own small sounds, the faint hiss of the évacué, the occasional groan of the structure. The police arrived in about 6 minutes. I heard a car, then voices outside, then the doorbell. An officer identified herself through the door before I opened it. There were 2 of them. I told them about the side yard and the person, and they went out through the back to approach from that direction. Terry arrived about 4 minutes after the police. She came through the front door and immediately went upstairs to check Emma, who had slept through everything. I stood in the kitchen while Terry checked on her daughter, and I looked out the side yard window. The yard was empty. The officers were moving along the fence line with flashlights. The report was, no one was found in the immediate area. A section of the side yard fence had marks consistent with someone leaning against it for an extended period, pressed grass, a partial impression in the soft soil near the post. The side door to the garage had been unlocked. An officer tested it, and it opened from the outside with just the handle. Terry got the garage door lock fixed the next week. She put a camera on the side of the house. She sent me a grocery store gift card with a note that said she was sorry and grateful. I appreciated both. I think about the way that person was standing, not moving, not trying to hide. They must have been able to see the light on in the kitchen, must have known someone was on the other side of that window, and they just stood there. That's the part I can't organize into something that makes sense. Whatever they were doing, whatever they were planning, the most disturbing element is the patience, the complete stillness. People are capable of patience that has no good explanation. I think about that more than I'd like to. I have to tell this story carefully because some of the details are still strange to me in a way I don't fully understand, and I don't want to reach for an explanation that isn't earned. I was 20, finishing up a gap year before my second semester of college, working odd jobs, one of which was helping a woman named Patricia watch her 2 kids on Tuesday and Thursday evenings when she had a night class. The kids were Marcus, who was 10, and Deja, who was 7. Patricia was a single mom. She'd found me through a mutual acquaintance, and we'd met in person twice before she left the kids with me. She ran a tight household chore chart on the fridge, homework done before screen time, bedtime at 8:30 for Deja, and 9 o'clock for Marcus. The house was a narrow 2-story row house with an attached garage they didn't use as a garage. It had been converted into a kind of extra room with no insulation that Patricia used for storage and laundry. The door to the garage from inside the house was in the kitchen, and the exterior garage door at the front was an old pull-up manual door that didn't always close flush. Patricia told me the first night not to worry about the garage door. It was stuck in the down position and wouldn't open from outside. She also told me that Marcus knew all this and might try to scare me by telling me the garage was haunted. She said this the way parents describe a kid's known behavior, not concerned, just informative. The first 4 sessions were entirely without incident. Marcus was a smart kid who liked arguing about things and was usually right, which was both annoying and impressive. Deja was generous and a little dramatic, and liked telling long stories that went sideways and never quite had endings. I was comfortable with both of them. Patricia always came home when she said she would, always paid me on the spot. The 5th Tuesday was the one. Patricia left at 5:45. I did homework with both kids at the kitchen table. Marcus had a math worksheet he found too easy and showed me how fast he could do it. Deja had reading she mostly wanted me to do with her. We had spaghetti from a box at 6:30. Deja spilled juice and we cleaned it up together, and she apologized about 8 times, which I told her once was sufficient. At 7:15, Deja went upstairs to get ready for bed. Marcus was allowed to stay up and watch TV until 9. I put Deja to bed at 7:45 and came back downstairs. Marcus was watching a nature documentary and explaining parts of it to me without being asked. I made tea in the kitchen. While I was waiting for the kettle, I heard something from the garage. It wasn't a dramatic sound. It was something between a shift and a thud, the kind of noise that a box makes when it slides off another box, or when something stacked poorly finally reaches its tipping point. I looked at the garage door in the kitchen and stood still. Marcus was talking to me from the living room about the documentary. I said yeah a few times so he'd think I was paying attention. The sound didn't repeat. I told myself it was exactly what it sounded like, a storage room with stuff in it, settling. I made my tea. At 8:45, after Marcus had gone upstairs to get ready for bed, I was sitting in the living room. The house was quiet. I heard the sound again. This time it was different, not a single shift, but a slow, irregular series of them. Not mechanical, not the house settling. It was the sound of careful movement. My tea was in my hand. I set it down on the coffee table. I sat completely still and listened. The sound stopped. I went to the kitchen and stood in front of the garage door. The knob was one of those lever handles with a push-button lock in the center. The button was pushed in, meaning the door was locked from the kitchen side. I stood there looking at it. I put my hand on the lever. I didn't push it down. Something on the other side of the door moved. Not a big movement, not a knock or a bang. The kind of sound weight makes when it redistributes. Like someone shifting position. Like someone who had been holding still for a while and couldn't quite hold still anymore. I took my hand off the lever. I went upstairs as quietly as I could. Marcus was in his room with his headphones on, playing a game on a tablet, completely unaware. I sat on the edge of his bed. He pulled one headphone off and looked at me. I said, "Hey, I need you to come with me into your sister's room and stay there for a few minutes, okay?" He looked at my face, and whatever he saw there made him not ask questions. He just put the tablet down. Kids who have grown up with a vigilant single parent develop a kind of threat recognition intuition. He moved quickly and quietly. I got both of them into Deeja's room. Deeja woke up confused. I told her we were doing something fun, a short impromptu sleepover thing, which she bought immediately. I pushed the small bookshelf in front of the door, not because it would have stopped anyone seriously, but because it made me feel like I had done something. I called Patricia. She answered, and I said very quietly that I'd heard something in the garage more than once, and the second time it sounded like movement, and I'd gotten the kids into one room, but I didn't know what to do. She said, "Is the kitchen door locked?" I said yes. She said, "Call the police." "I'm in the parking lot. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I called 911. Marcus was sitting cross-legged on Deeja's bed, listening to my half of the conversation, and I kept my voice low. The operator asked questions. I answered as accurately as I could. Sounds from attached garage, no visual contact. Both children with me in locked room. She told me officers were responding. The police were there in 9 minutes. I heard them arrive and stayed in the room. One of them called up the stairs with a name that dispatch had given them, and I yelled back that we were in the back bedroom. They came upstairs first to confirm we were safe, then went to clear the garage. Patricia arrived while they were still in there. She came straight upstairs. Both kids went to her immediately, and I stepped back and leaned against the wall and felt my legs for the first time since I'd been in the kitchen. An officer came upstairs maybe 7 minutes later. He said there was a man in the garage. He'd been there for an unknown period of time. He'd apparently been sleeping there on a pile of folded plastic tarps. There was a depression in them from extended use, not just one night. There was a water bottle, a plastic bag from a gas station, an older sleeping bag folded under a workbench. The exterior garage door, the one Patricia thought was stuck, had been opened from the inside with a flathead tool at some point, possibly weeks ago, and then closed back down so it appeared stuck. The man had tried to leave through the exterior door when the police entered. He didn't make it. They arrested him outside on the driveway. He was charged with criminal trespass and had prior charges. Patricia cried in the hallway for a while. She apologized to me multiple times, and I kept saying it wasn't her fault, because it wasn't. She'd believed the door was stuck. She'd had no reason to check. He'd been careful enough that she'd never heard anything. But I think about that. Someone had been in that garage for what might have been weeks, on those Tuesday and Thursday evenings when the house had a babysitter and not an adult who knew the place well. Someone who had learned the schedule. Someone who had been careful enough on 4 previous Tuesdays and Thursdays to stay completely quiet. The 5th time a box fell. Marcus told me later, months later, in a text out of nowhere, that the night it happened had made him think differently about how he listened to his surroundings. He said he'd started noticing sounds in his house in a way he hadn't before. He said he thought that was probably good. He was 12 by then and said it very maturely, and I thought he was right. I'm not afraid of every house I go into. I'm not unable to function, but I do listen now in a way I didn't before. And I check the doors, all the doors, even the ones someone tells me are stuck.